Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and guess what? I'm not burying the lead. Daniel Penny was just found not guilty on the criminally negligent homicide charge, which is an amazing outcome considering that they were deadlocked on the manslaughter charge, but it turns out, in my opinion, the prosecutor's dirty trick, her absolutely ridiculous maneuver in order to try to get a compromised guilty verdict against Daniel Penny completely backfired, completely blew up in her face, and I'm 100% here for it. So we're going to talk about this. I'm going to break this down, but before I do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
We have breaking news. A jury has found Daniel Penny not guilty of criminal negligent homicide in the death of Jordan Neely. Last week, a judge dismissed the top charge of second-degree manslaughter after the jury said it was deadlocked on that count. Prosecutors claimed Penny held Neely for too long, causing his death in a chokehold, while the defense argued Penny acted in self-defense.
So if you guys will recall, in a video earlier this week, I laid out the case for why Daniel Penny is not guilty on these charges, why he should be found innocent, and essentially it's because his actions were protected under self-defense/defense of others, because Jordan Neely, according to multiple witnesses, came on the train, was threatening to kill people, and obviously you don't have to wait for somebody to actually initiate the kill when he's actively threatening and getting in the face of multiple different passengers. Again, you had people who were riding the train for 50 years that testified in court that they never felt more threatened in a subway, even though they've witnessed crimes in the subway, until that day, until Jordan Neely stepped aboard that train.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either going to pull a gun and knife or said, I'm willing to die, I'm willing to die.
On cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses, the defense played police-sworn body camera video of their statements to responding officers about what happened when 30-year-old Jordan Neely entered an F train on May 1st, 2023.
He's scared to live in daylight out there.
That witness told the jury she's been riding the subway for over 50 years and has been threatened before, but this was the first time she said she was actually scared. She described Neely as resisting when Marine veteran Daniel Penny put Neely in a chokehold to restrain him.
Not a hard chokehold, just enough to secure him, and the guy fought.
She testified she left to go to the conductor and then also pressed an intercom button in the station to see when police might arrive because it had been a while. She also said she went over to thank Penny after.
And they all thanked Daniel Penny for fighting back, for restraining this person, and there was never an argument, in my opinion, that Daniel Penny's restraint, even if it ultimately ended up leading to the death of Neely, was unnecessary deadly force. And in fact, the prosecution had to argue, because this was so obvious, that sure, he had the right to restrain him, but he must have held him for too long or something like that, so we should still convict him of something.
Prosecutors said Penny wasn't wrong to place him in the hold, but that he continued it for far too long.
Defense attorneys told the jury this was not a chokehold death, calling the charges against Daniel Penny a rush to judgment by the Manhattan DA's office, arguing media attention and protesters demanding an arrest seemed to be the motivation behind it. And they alleged it was the motivation behind the medical examiner's office issuing the cause of death, compression of the neck, chokehold, without having the results back from various testing like toxicology, anthropology, and histology.
Now, of course, they ended up charging him with manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide as the undercharge, and as we talked about on this channel before, the jury was deadlocked on the manslaughter charge, and one of the reasons I was so worried about that is because if you're convicted of manslaughter in the second degree, you're also, in addition to that, automatically convicted of the criminally negligent homicide, because essentially the standard for that manslaughter charge is that the person knew that what they were doing was likely to cause death, and the standard for the criminally negligent homicide is the person should have known that what this person was doing could have likely resulted in a death. And obviously, if you know something, then you definitely should have known something. So to me, when they decided to do that dirty trick and break the deadlock of the jury by dropping the top line charge, the reason I believe that that could have resulted in a guilty verdict is that essentially what they were doing was trying to make sure all the guilty votes stay guilty, but anybody who was on the not guilty side had a chance of flipping on the lesser charge. But it turns out this completely backfired, and I think one of the reasons why this backfired is from the perception of the jury. If the prosecution is just going to abandon that top line charge, maybe the prosecution is conceding in their minds enough to the defense side that they could not end up finding him guilty on even the lesser count. And because the dismissal of that previous charge charge was so late in the process, essentially that can't be tried again via double jeopardy, even though they did not reach a verdict on it. And the criminally negligent homicide charge can also not be tried again because guess what? He was just acquitted on those charges. So Daniel Penny gets to walk free, and he should walk free because obviously this was a self-defense case. It was never anything but that, and any arguments to the contrary are rooted in the fact that people wanted to spin a racial narrative. Again, you could see it from the way that this case was charged. Daniel Penny was not alone in his restraint of Jordan Neely. Sure, he had him in what looked like a chokehold, although Penny told the police that he was not providing pressure on his neck.
And I kind of came like this.
Okay. Did you apply pressure, Daniel?
No, I wasn't. I just wanted to keep him from getting to people. Some guy came in. He's like, whipped his jacket off, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill everybody. I can go to prison forever. I don't care. I don't do this." At that point, I looked to the person next to me like, "Hey, just hang on to this phone for me." I had my headphones in and took it off, and just kind of like grabbed him from behind because he came in, just to because he was acting like a lunatic, like a crazy person.
Because it looks like a sleeper hold to me,
right,
something similar.
I'm not trying to kill the guy.
Right.
I'm just trying to de-escalate the situation. I wasn't trying to injure him.
Right.
I'm just trying to keep him from hurting anybody else.
And by the way, Penny told this to the police before he knew Neely died, so he didn't have the same incentive to lie that you would have post having that knowledge. And as I said before, the other individual who held Neely's arms down, making it impossible for him to break himself out of the chokehold, was not only not charged after he fled the scene, went into hiding for a week, and then lied to the police and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, he was actually given an immunity deal to use his testimony against Daniel Penny.
The 39-year-old father, the first to testify Tuesday morning, telling the court that he went into hiding when he found out Neely had died and that Penny had been indicted for involuntary manslaughter. The Bronx resident explaining that he did not see what led to the commotion but jumped in and tried to help, telling Penny, at the time, "I'm going to grab his hand so you can let go. But at some point, Jordan Neely's body went limp and I let go." That's when Gonzalez said he tried to wake Neely and check for a pulse before leaving the scene to go to work. Gonzalez telling the court how Neely tried to break free from the chokehold, seen here tapping the leg of a bystander, asking him to tell Penny to let him go. Gonzalez telling Neely they were not going to do that, after which Neely is seen here, fiercely struggling to get loose. NYPD detectives having to track him down a week later. Gonzalez in a panic he might get pinned with a murder charge, testifying, "I lied to the ADA, at first saying Neely struck him first and Penny came down and took him down, and that I also lied and said Jordan Neely was alive and breathing when I left the scene."
Now, of course, I don't think that other individual should be charged with this crime as well. It is self-defense, defense of others for Daniel Penny, and it is also self-defense, defense of others for Eric Gonzalez. But it is very crucial that you guys understand that a person of color who acted in concert with Daniel Penny that could have easily been charged with the crime was not only not charged, but given an immunity deal. And obviously that is down to the bias of the prosecution. And we all know District Attorney Alvin Bragg goes after people for political reasons. We all know the woke nature of his district attorney's office. That has been well established. He reduces felony charges in 60% of the cases. But in this case, because it got media attention, he decided to pursue, or his office did, Daniel Penny. But also the prosecutor, Daphne Yarin, the one who is actually trying the case, has established that she gives preferential treatment to black criminals that she know is guilty as compared to Daniel Penny, who again, she even had to admit was correct in restraining Neely. She just wanted to tinker around the edges and say that he went too far, in her opinion, as a Monday morning quarterback.
So I'm going to give you an example of something that I did with a recent case of mine, and this has never been done in my office. I had a murder case where the defendant did not intentionally kill the victim. He went into an ATM on the Upper West Side and tried to rob an individual. Unfortunately, it was an older individual. He was 86. And in the course of the robbery, he fell to the ground. And as a result, he died. This is, under the law, a felony murder, which is akin to intentional murder. However, when I first got the case, I learned, I took the time to learn about the defendant. And it was a strong case, so it wasn't about a whodunit. I knew immediately who did it. I could prove it. I could take it to trial that day and win it. But it wasn't about that. It was that the more I learned about the defendant and his life and the circumstances, the kinds of things that Jarrell was talking about, that one should take into account the trauma of that individual, I really felt incredibly sorry for him that he had gotten to that point in his life where he felt like there was no other choice but to commit this robbery.
Again, that clip of that prosecutor should tell you everything you need to know about what this person believes. This person sees a case, a clear and obvious felony murder, where a career criminal decides that he's going to rob an Asian man, a professor, age 86, for $300 at an ATM. He throws that man to the ground. He hits his head. He ultimately ends up dying. And the prosecutor, the person who's supposed to punish the criminal, the career criminal in that particular instance, decides, you know what? Even though this is a slam dunk felony murder case, this is exactly why we have felony murder charges in this country. I'm gonna give this guy a break because I talked to him and I realized that he had to murder that Asian guy because his life was so sad. Again, you guys will sometimes give me comments about how I shouldn't say that these people think that these criminals are innocent Bebe Angel Aladdins, but what else am I supposed to take from that statement when the prosecutor says straight up that she looked at these cases, decided that Daniel Penny was guilty because reasons, and she was going to pursue that to the fullest extent of the law, but a career criminal that was robbing an individual that assaulted him because he didn't turn over the money fast enough, ultimately ended up killing him, is a baby, and oh my god, his circumstances led him to be in that situation. He wasn't trapped in a train with somebody who was threatening to kill people. He wasn't in a situation where his Marine Corps training was necessary and could have been utilized in order to help people. He was a criminal who wanted instant gratification, and he killed somebody for that instant gratification. And guess what? Daphne Yaron ends up backing that person while prosecuting Penny. That's who Daphne Yaron is. Now, of course, a bunch of different people are angry about this. Black Lives Matter activists are already pushing the grift.
Thank you. I'm sorry to Dre. I'm sorry to Chris. I'm sorry that America has failed you. You've come here, you've shown discipline, you've shown strength, you've shown love, you've shown how to carry yourself with composure when you're facing this machine, this American judicial system that cannibalizes our people. But I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna say it loud and clear. Let the marchers march and let the steppers step. Let the marchers march and let the steppers step. You want to do something about this verdict? Then you go into your neighborhood and you promote black unity. Black people, we are all we have. This system protects every other group except for the very people that built this country.
Say it.
Every group that comes here gets privileges, gets benefits, except for the very people whose fingerprints are on the bricks that built this country.
In fact, when they dropped the previous charge as a sneaky way to try to steal a conviction from a mistrial, they were calling for riots and calling this evil white racism and talking about how America was going to America.
They will not find a white man guilty of killing a black man in modern day America. This is no different than Jim Crow. This looks like a picture out of the picture book when you look at that anonymous jury. We have baby boomers who were there during Jim Crow on this jury. We have young people who are looking at Daniel Penny as a hero. And what America is a hero, a killer. He didn't give a crap about Jordan. The medical examiner said Jordan turned purple. Yes, black people can turn purple when they're denied oxygen. Every lab report showed he died of asphyxiation. And that doesn't matter because they want to spare a white man the penalty of his crimes. America has not changed, and I hate to say it, it may never change. And people who keep asking, are we going to riot? Are we going to protest? Is that what's needed? Do glass have to break? Do cars have to burn for a black man to get justice in America? We can't show up with peace. We can't show up with facts. We can't show up with evidence and witness after witness. You give us nothing. And then you ask us to love this country. America hates black people, and we see it from that jury pool.
A black man was lynched, and his name was Jordan Neely.
Which again is ridiculous and absurd from top to bottom, because there was no case here. There was never any case here.
There is no love for black people. There is no love in the system. How can you make a moral appeal to a people that have no moral code? How can you preach love to racists? That got Dr. King killed. How can you promote love to a nation that is built on theft and genocide?
That's right.
What we preach is unity, black unity. Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself. Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
And I also want to point out that the dirty tricks didn't extend to just the public pressure of the Black Lives Matter rioters threatening and doing all this stuff in order to pressure the jury. It also extended to the medical examiner, who initially, when she ended up diagnosing the cause of death for Jordan Neely, did not have neck compression as the cause of death. She had cause of death pending for him, and this is because she was awaiting the tox screen, and there were not enough indicators for Neely's body for her just examining the body to determine cause of death. And this was admitted and disclosed at trial. However, she said she changed her testimony or changed her report based on the fact that she saw the video.
They also noted after she performed the autopsy, Neely's death certificate originally said cause of death pending further study. Dr. Harris said that was due to a misunderstanding. A police report said Neely had been screaming, so she had questions. After viewing video of an unresponsive Neely, and though waiting for toxicology results, she made her ruling, doubling down, telling the jury that Neely could have had enough fentanyl in his system to knock down an elephant, and that still would not have changed her opinion.
Now again, I have said this before and I will say this again. A medical examiner, somebody who's supposed to determine cause of death from examining the body, should not be influenced by outside things and making their decisions based on those outside influences. Yet in this particular case, where everything and anything was thrown at Daniel Penny, where it seems like a bunch of his due process rights were violated, where it seems like the prosecution was out to get them, and I'm saying seems like, even though I definitely think it 100% was, you have this switchy switch of the diagnosis that just so happens to benefit the state's case, because in reality, if you can't even establish cause of death beyond a reasonable doubt, you should not be able to establish guilt on a manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide beyond a reasonable doubt. But guess what? The prosecution tried to pull off those moves, they tried to pull off all these dirty tricks, they tried an 11th hour, drop the top charge in order to get him convicted of something, and guess what? It all backfired. The people of New York do believe in self-defense, they are willing to fight for it, and it makes me believe that out of everyone on the jury, there was probably one holdout, one person that was trying to convict, and eventually their will ended up eroding, and I'm 100% here for it. I am glad that Daniel Penny was found not guilty. He should have never been tried in the first place, and by the way, again, a lot of you will highlight the Jordan Williams case where this guy got into a fight with a crazed homeless person on the subway and he ended up stabbing him, and call hypocrisy on Bragg's office. But just to be clear about that case, which was also self-defense, Jordan Williams, who is black and defending himself in that instance, did so in Brooklyn. So it's actually not under the jurisdiction of Alvin Bragg. And in fact, the grand jury refused to indict, even though the Brooklyn DA did arrest him, did charge him, did secure a $100,000 bond against him, and all of that. So yeah, there is hypocrisy in this case, but if you want a one-to-one comparison, if you want a perfect example of that hypocrisy, you need look no further than the Jordan Neely case itself, because while Daniel Penny faced all these different charges because he definitely should not have done this, or he went too far, or whatever nonsense, Eric Gonzalez, who aided Daniel Penny in restraining Jordan Neely, got an immunity deal. Again, you don't have to look for a comparable case. The contradiction or the double standard is present in this case and this case alone. So yeah, you're going to hear all about how Jordan Neely was a street performer. He wasn't a street performer for the past 10 years. You're going to hear about him being a Michael Jackson impersonator and how good he was over 10 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, is, this guy was a violent repeat offender, 42 arrests, broke an elderly woman's nose, tried to kidnap a child in what was the greatest Michael Jackson impersonation, I might add. And yeah, he should have never been out on the streets in the first place. We also had 2 different reports of his dangerous mental illness. He was high on K2.
A toxicology report revealed Neely had a synthetic cannabinoid, otherwise known as K2, in his system. But she told the jury no one can say how much, because current testing does not quantify it. It only determines if it's present, since synthetic cannabinoids change like fashion trends. On cross-examination, defense attorneys asked her about higher rates of toxicity and hospitalizations due to K2. She said it was 2 to 100 times more potent to standard natural occurring cannabinoids.
Which is a synthetic cannabinoid that is 2 to 100 times stronger than marijuana. And he was also a paranoid schizophrenic, and all his family members that abandoned him to the streets that all of a sudden are trying to sue or trying to call out Daniel Penny and talk about how much they love Jordan Neely. I will just point out, they never got him the help that he needed when he was alive. They left him on the streets. They let him commit crimes over and over again. And eventually and tragically, he ended up meeting his end. And I do say tragically because this death is not the ideal result of this situation. Let's be clear about that. Jordan Neely should have been held accountable well before that. He would have been alive if he was committed to some kind of treatment. He might have actually been getting better with his mental conditions. And it's really unfortunate that the people who say we have to be compassionate to the homeless, compassionate to the mentally ill, compassionate to the criminal, keep leaving them on the streets to languish, reoffend, and many a time, as we've covered on this channel, that ultimately ends up causing them their lives. So yeah, I do have sympathy for the family of Jordan Neely. However hypocritical they are and however disgusting they are to come out now and try to attack Daniel Penny, but the fact of the matter is, this is the product of the broken system in the city and in the state of New York. The product of the broken prosecution's office, which is the Manhattan District Attorney's office, because if they would have held Neely accountable, if they would have put him in jail, guess what? He is not on that subway train. He's not threatening people's lives while he's high out of his mind, and Daniel Penny doesn't need to step up in that situation. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the justified, not guilty verdict in the Penny case. Till next time.